So over to you, Paul, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Colette, and thanks for the introduction. And firstly, thanks a lot for facilitating the change of the time for myself on it. I know you have a packed agenda, but I just got called to, we're doing a media briefing very shortly, so I really appreciate you moving the agenda around. And I just came in at the tail end of Mary's input there, but it was something I was going to come back to, and I will. And now you're talking about a Colette, which is around language and words being important, so I will come back to that. It would probably be remiss if I don't start today to just pay a very special thanks to everybody on the call, just in terms of the last few weeks. I know it's a jointly LGBT and IMO sponsored event, but the last few weeks and months have been an unprecedented period for the health service in Ireland, and dealing with the COVID-19 virus and the impact that we've had by a global pandemic hitting us in the manner which it has. So I just want to start off by saying very briefly, and we'll get the time to do this better soon, special thanks to everybody for your work, your commitment, your contribution over the last few weeks and months in a very, very difficult period for the health service and a very difficult period for our society. And there's one great inspiration, many inspirations, but one in particular I take from the last few weeks and months is that I think the Irish public experienced a much more unified health service. And I think that's something we should think about a lot and learn from, because I think we will always have differences and people have different drivers and seek many different outcomes. But I think the one outcome we all do strive to achieve is a better healthcare system. And I think the public experienced a much better singular voice coming from the health system. And I think that gave the public much better trust and confidence. And I can say that actually with a bit of confidence, because we have been tracking kind of various studies, empathy studies, that would look at the public's experience over the last few weeks and months of us. And we did rate extremely high. In fact, on one study, we rated #1 in terms of a brand that the public trust during COVID-19. So I think we should take great credit from that. We have many issues we need to do right and better in the future, and we will always be reminded of them. But I think there is a point for us that we recognise how the health service mobilised so effectively and so quickly. I just want to say that in opening, and thanks to everybody involved. And secondly, I just want to say it doesn't feel like just over a year ago now when with yourselves I did launch the LGBT plus awareness and inclusion video, which you just mentioned, Colette, on the training program, 45-minute training program, where we launched it just last year. And I know there's been a reasonable uptake of it. I would like, to be frank, I'd like to see a much better uptake on it. I know over 3,000 staff have viewed it. And I think, as Mary was saying, it's one of the best enablers of changing behaviours is to have better awareness and better understanding. And I think the training module really does support that. It gives people a better understanding in terms of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender issues and how we can express those in the health system. And I was particularly interested again in this issue around terminology, because my experience has been some people might get it wrong. And I think, Mary, you were saying about it's okay to come back and say, you know, I didn't really mean what I said, or tell me how to say it right or better in the future. And I think we have to create that environment that people feel safe to be able to seek support about how they say, express certain issues, but equally that it's a very safe environment for them to do so. And I think the module does support people in terms of that. So what I'm saying in terms of the module, it's great to have it up and launched. It's great it's on HSE land, I think, and I'm committed to see with our own teams how we create a better awareness and a better uptake of it overall. And that's something we can jointly consider. Third aspect I just want to talk briefly about, and I know you were touching on it there again, is how do we make the experience of the patient, people who are using our services from the LGBT plus community much better. And you know, I don't come from a health background, but I do come from a strong experience of customer service. And knowing the impact of, knowing how people who deliver services can strongly influence the experience of the people who use those services. I have that very strong. And I think that carries very much through to health service. The experience of people as they come to use our services, as they engage with us, will be highly influenced by the experience, by the attitudes and behaviour shown of our staff to those people who are coming in. And I know we talk a good bit, and indeed the training modules talk a good bit around behaviours and why they are important. But I have a very strong view that actually the most fundamental part about changing behaviours and attitude is you really need to start at values. And what's the person's value system, and what's the organisation's value system. And a good bit of work has been done in the past in terms of the values that I actually rate quite highly for the HSE around, you know, being a caring organisation, being a trusting organisation. So I think it's something we can also think about, is just about how we, I guess, align a lot of the development and the module training for our staff around LGBT plus awareness, but also how the values play a really strong, important role, because it's like the foundations of a house. If you don't get the foundations right and correct, the house will be built on sand and it won't really last too long. So changing attitudes and behaviours can be done in a more sustainable way by really concentrating on the foundations, which are the values that we all have and we all work by. And that's not about changing a person's personal values. It is about recognising the values that are important to us at work, and they will reflect down in behaviours. So I'll just let that one out there briefly. I just want to also reference, I know that the research is being carried out in conjunction with the NUIG, and thanks for that with LGBT Ireland. And I am anxious and looking forward to seeing what's coming through on that, because I think evidence is the best way in which we can improve, how we can strengthen, about how we can work on some of those issues I just mentioned, whether it's values or behaviours or attitudes. So I really look forward to seeing that. I know it's close to being ready to be presented. I'm really anxious to see the final report, and just to see issues like what are the confidence levels of staff now in dealing with these matters, and do people feel more confident having gone through the module, or having had the experience of the networks and the champions that you just referenced earlier on, Colette, as well. So I'm very anxious to see that, and also to see how we are dealing with discrimination, which is a point I think I hold very true, because I believe there are very fundamentals we have to address about the Irish health system, about the Irish health service, because there are many inequities in the Irish health system, whether it's largely around the concern of yourselves on this conference today around LGBT plus issues, but there's also issues around inclusion and eligibility around our health system. And while many of those issues are for policymakers, they are issues that we as people who are delivering health systems need to be conscious of, and need to make sure that we make every effort for an inclusion. And there are many things we can do to address inclusivity and address issues of discrimination. And I think they're very strong issues that we need to really fundamentally look at in the Irish health system. And I think we've some learnings coming through COVID about that I personally will be reflecting on, about how we make the system accessible to people, not just through an acute hospital system, but through community services, through having respect for all communities and how they access it. And I think there was good experiences in COVID if you just look at vulnerable groups around whether it's drug addiction, mental health issues, how we were able to sustain, in fact in some ways nearly even enhance our services during COVID. So coming back again to the LGBT plus community, it is a big challenge for us to really challenge ourselves about this is not an opt-in issue, and I want to make that point strong, very strong. It's not an opt-in that we address some of these issues. It's not an opt-in that we address discrimination. It's not an opt-in that we get our language and our understanding right and better. It's not an opt-in that we have an awareness about many of the issues that you're discussing today. And I know you've also been talking around all the persons there and the champions that we have. So the point I would be making is it's not an opt-in, it's a baseline requirement. And we need to strengthen our expectations about what we believe people need to behave like, what we will tolerate, what we won't tolerate. And I'm very happy to put my voice to any way I can help in that. I do come from a background of, experiencing exclusion and discrimination. So it's important that we put our colours to the mast on this one and raise it above a good thing to do as opposed to a very expected thing to do and a baseline requirement. And again, I think as Mary was saying earlier on, knowledge is powerful in this way. You can't just beat people into it. Knowledge does inform people. Right. I'd just like to finally reflect on a few initiatives that I know you have been very strong on, which is the LGBT champions and how that's addressing many issues for community that wouldn't have the voice but for what you're doing, particularly in the Southeast and some of the pilots that's going on. And also some of the train-to-trainer modules, which I think will be really powerful because this is building a community of knowledge. And other initiatives in terms of any partnerships that you have on gender identity and the LGBTI alliances, which I did meet at the start when I joined HSE. So in closing messages from myself, I would just say I look forward to the research as it concludes and reviewing it with the team and the executive team here in the HSE, and I'd like to invite you in when we representatives when we do have that research to talk to myself and the executive management team and share your views on what the research is telling us about how we might embed some of the learnings from it. Secondly, I would again encourage staff across the organisation to further utilise the tools and supports that we have in terms of training modules. And thirdly, I would make the point I made earlier on, which is about, this is not an opt-in, this is a baseline requirement of what we expect in terms of a good organisation would do, should do. And I'm happy to put my voice and support and leadership behind that. So finally for me, I know we don't have the parade this year, but you're having many virtual experiences, which is a new world we're all experiencing. But I've no doubt, sometime soon in the future, we'll all be able to celebrate in a way that we feel we're good at. So, Paul, I'm not sure I'm handing back to yourself, but thanks again, and really thanks for changing the times.
Paul, thank you so much on behalf of LGBT Ireland and the INMO. I know you're at time, there is probably not a busier person in the country at this moment. And just to say thank you so much for your words of encouragement. I think it means a lot to all of the people here and again across the country who are really trying to deliver LGBTI inclusive healthcare. And I think your words of encouragement and your strong statement of support are really music to people's ears today. So we really appreciate your time. We won't keep you any longer. So thanks so much, Paul.
Thank you very much.
And we will come in and see you to present the research when it's finished.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Paul.